We've already covered quantitative methods, the data that can be easily converted into numbers, right? And we talked about surveys largely with that. Well, there's also qualitative methods. And so qualitative methods are done primarily in two ways. But overall, it's data that you collect that can't just be turned into numerical data. So the first way that we do qualitative research is called ethnography, and that's based on kind of observations. If I were doing research on friendships at Santiago Canyon College, I would go out to campus and I would sit down. Now, granted, think about this. I can't sit down and like super stare at people because then they're going to be like, what's that lady doing? And I'm going to kind of ruin my own research. Like I have to kind of blend in. But let's say I sat on a bench and I had my phone and I was acting like I was just looking at my phone. But I'm doing research on friendship. So let's see, what would I be looking for if I were on campus? People walking together, right? People walking and talking together. Maybe groups of like three or four. People laughing together, things along those lines. So maybe I could just like make tallies on my phone, like in my notes app or something, of how many in an hour of sitting there, how many people did I see walking by themselves? How many people did I see walking with another person? How many people did I see walking with that person and talking? So on and so forth. So I could kind of be acting like I'm getting a little bit of like work done. Again, just trying to blend into what you are observing. But a lot of times, as you can see, this is done as a two-part activity. You're doing the observation part, and then you're writing field notes, like so that you're not sitting there scribbling a whole bunch of stuff while you're looking up and following people around. You go back to your car, you go back home, you go back to your office, whatever it is, and you dump out all the like little bits and pieces that you observed. Maybe you noticed that a whole bunch of students had headphones on, or maybe you noticed that the groups of people walking by, had all the same club t-shirt on, and you're starting to make a hypothesis that when, people seem to have connections and friendships on community college campuses, it's because they're involved in the same program, something along those lines, right? So that's what field notes are, is that you are writing out all of your observations because you go sit down for, an hour, 15, 20 times, that's a lot, observing what's going on campus, you're going to have a fair amount of data that you consistently see this, or maybe that's going to be something that you saw today, but you want to keep track of in the future. So ethnography is when you are studying people's behavior right around you, that you're just kind of blending in and studying it. The other thing you're more familiar with when we're doing qualitative methods, it's interviews. It's sitting down and asking questions. So you want to be careful that they're not leading questions, that you basically kind of almost answered the question as you're asking it. You want to be careful that it's not a closed-ended question, one that you can answer with yes or no, because that's not going to help you a whole heck of a lot to not have kind of data that somebody has expanded on what their answer is. And so you really want to consider like how it is that you are setting up this conversation. Now, a lot of times when you're doing interviews in this way, you ask the respondent, your research, the person you're researching, if you can record the lecture, you have to be forthright about that and tell them they're being recorded. And then I would imagine, back in the day, you would literally have to transcribe. You'd have to go back and type out the whole interview. Nowadays, I'm sure there's got to be programs that'll do transcriptions, although I don't know necessarily how accurate they are. So you might kind of go through, when have you seen something closed captioned, right? Either on Instagram or YouTube, and the person's saying one word, but that's not necessarily what is being like shown in a typed fashion in the closed captions on the video. So thinking through the fact that then you've interviewed a bunch of people, think about how many words I've already said just in this short little lecture. Like your transcription is long. You got to read through them all, and you've got to then kind of map out where again do you see connections? Where do you see people saying the same things? It's similar to other people you interviewed. What might they have in common? You have to try to map out and see what people are responding and what you're learning from their responses. So qualitative methods is the stuff that is a little bit more complex to make your way through and to create knowledge from. You can't just type it in to Excel or the program that we use for statistics and get a whole bunch of charts and numerical data. You've got to go through carefully after doing either observations or interviews and see what you're learning.